Hey guys, what's going on? Djriff, and today we're going to be talking about how to play a Shadow Priest and how to level your artifact up come Legion on Tuesday. Let's get into it. Alright guys, the first thing we're going to talk about today is stat weights. Now, stat weights differ depending on what talent that you are taking. So as you can see on the screen, for Surrender to Madness, we have Haste, Crit, Mastery, Int, and then Versatility. Now, Haste is going to be pretty much universal across the board. It's good. However, when you have Legacy of the Void and Mind Spike, it's going to be Crit, Haste, Mastery, Int, and Versatility. And for your combined average, if you're going to be doing a lot of mix of raids, dungeons, and leveling, which most of us are, you're going to want to go Haste, Crit, Mastery, Int, Versatility. Now, the difference between the combined average and Surrender to Madness is Haste is way more valuable with Surrender to Madness due to dot scaling and a number of other factors. Shout out to Twin Top, because he's the one that actually came up with these and did all the math behind them, so props to him. Next, we're going to talk about talents. Now, the important thing about talents is there are some flat out, absolutely horrible talents that you'll never want to take. So, never, ever, 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 ever take Mind Spike or Power Infusion. Both of these are just straight up DPS losses compared to the other two talents on the roads. Alright, now for Legacy of the Void and Mind Spike, both of these talents are pretty subpar in comparison to Surrender to Madness, but we'll get to that in a bit. So let's start at the level 15 row. Now you have Twist of Fate, Fortress of the Mind, and Shadow Word Void. Now Twist of Fate is actually really good as long as you can maintain uptime of it. And Fortress of the Mind is also good for kind of the same reason. Both are decent for leveling that I have found. However, most of the time you're going to run Twist of Fate. It's always the default talent. Shadow Word Void actually is kind of useful when leveling if you find yourself nuking down a mob really fast. Say you outgear it coming from Mythic Hellfire Citadel or Heroic and you got a lot of gear. Shadow Word Void is good for building up Void forms or Insanity to get into your next Void form. As you'll find out during leveling, Void form kind of sucks. Alright, into the row 30. Mania is bad. And the reason that it's bad is not because, well, it's mainly because you're never going to be capped out on Insanity. You're always going to want to pop Void form. I personally can't see a use for taking this ever. Masochism is actually very good for leveling, allowing you to basically give yourself a hot outside of combat, which will actually stay with you into combat, as long as you're out of combat when you're casting Shadowmen on yourself. Now, right now, I'm able to get 5 Shadowmens on myself, or a number of powered shields, but powered shields are kind of irrelevant outside of combat. The main talent that I stick with is Body and Soul. Pretty much get a 40% speed boost for 3 seconds on a cooldown of 6 seconds, because that's a cooldown of Powered Shield. Alright, so it's pretty much 50% uptime. Yeah, it does take a GCD, but it makes things a little faster. Moving on to row 45, you got Mind Bomb, Psychic Voice, and Dominant Mind. Now, Dominant Mind used to be the go-to talent until they nerfed the duration and the cooldown of Mind Control. So unfortunately, it's going to be, it's not showing up on beta right now, but it actually has like a 5-minute cooldown off the top of my head, I think, and unfortunately you're just not going to be able to do a whole lot with it. It could still be useful in dungeons, but honestly, it's not going to be the talent that you choose unless there's a mechanic, that requires you to maintain control of your character, but also MC something. Psychic Voice reduces the cooldown of Psychic Scream by 30 seconds. This can kind of be useful if it's more oriented towards PvP, but honestly, I stick with Mind Bomb. Now, it's an AoE stun that has a 2-second lag after you cast it, so basically, I find this extremely useful in dungeons. It's good while leveling. Fear is also good while leveling. Sometimes you'll just find that your guy ends up like, the dude you fear runs into another mob and aggroes them, and that's just a bad day because our survivability is in the toilet right now. Alright, so next in row 60, you have Void Lord, Reaper of Souls, and Void Ray. Now, Void Ray is technically the best talent for pure single target fights. For leveling and for running Surrender to Madness, don't take this. If you're going to be running Mind Spike, against my better advice, take Void Ray. It'll help you out. Reaper of Souls should always be ran with Surrender to Madness, just because of the 30 Insanity that you get baseline from Shadow Word Death. with this talent. Otherwise, you only get 10 insanity, which kind of sucks, but with Surrender to Madness, you get a lot more. Alright, and then you have Void Lord. Now, Void Lord is great for leveling, for dungeons, and it can be good in trash and raids too. So if you have a lot of those scribe tomes handy to change talents around a lot, or you got somebody in your guild or group that can constantly put up that little safe zone, then yeah, go ahead and run this on trash. But for leveling and leveling dungeons, that kind of thing, it's going to be a toss-up between these two. Really, it's your choice what you want to run. Alright, row 75, we're going to have Sane Lane, or I have no idea how to pronounce that, butchered that. Alright, Auspicious Spirits, and then Shadowy Insight. Hands down, Auspicious Spirits is going to be the best talent here in terms of pure insanity generation. I did a bunch of tables, which I can link in the description if you guys want, but pretty much it's going to be the talent that you want to always pick. It's always useful, you're always going to have an abundance of crit. As a matter of fact, even my stats right now on a freshly dinged 110, I have 18% crit base, which is not a lot, but Shadowy Insight just throws a monkey wrench into the rotation, and it's not really that good. You can't really rely on the RNG. When you're running the Surrender to Madness, you're definitely going to want to run Auspicious Spirits. Now, this talent is kind of alright. However, it's a boost to your survivability, and as well as if, like, you're running arenas or something like that, you can also use it there, but I really wouldn't advise it. Now, as I said earlier, game sound because that's loud. Alright, as I said earlier, Power Infusion is a bad talent. It's a trap talent. Just do not take it. Just ignore it. Forget it doesn't exist. Okay? Or forget it exists. Alright, so for dungeons, you're going to want to take Shadow Crash. Any kind of AoE fight where you're going to be able... It has a huge travel time, as you can see here. It's already on my bar. Alright, you can see the travel time on it right here. There it is, flying through the sky, and boom. Alright, it does quite a bit of damage. It's going to be your best AoE talent. However, in raids on single target fights, or single target and multi-target dot fights that don't have a lot of ads, think of like Beast Lord from the Blackrock Foundry. Alright guys, sorry it looks a little different. The server actually crashed there, so the break is going to look a little weird. Alright, getting into the last row, we have Legacy of the Void, Mind Spike, and Surrender to Madness. Now, as I said a few times, Mind Spike is not a talent to take. It is awkward. It does not flow into the rotation at all, and it kind of makes you want to delay your Mind Blast, which is something that you never want to do. And that's something that I'll get into once we talk about the actual priority rotation sort of thing later on in the video. Now, first and foremost, you have Legacy of the Void. Now, this is going to be the talent that you're going to take pretty much everywhere except for raids. Now, for raids, you're going to be taking Surrender to Madness. And the reason why is Surrender to Madness is so phenomenally good that it makes the other two talents just straight up look subpar. Now, when you are taking Surrender to Madness, you're always going to want to pair this with Auspicious Spirits, Reaper of Souls, and Twist of Fate. And the reason that Twist of Fate runs into here is because you're going to be using it at 35%, roughly, in the execute phase of the fight. That way, you need to keep yourself alive, otherwise you're going to die. Unfortunately, for dungeons and, you know, PvP, battlegrounds, arenas, that kind of thing, Surrender to Madness just doesn't really have a place. Not that it has a 10-minute cooldown. You die 3 minutes after you activate it, whether or not you're in void form or not. And, you know, a number of other reasons why you just don't want to do something like that. You can just get CC'd, instantly die, and then people are going to laugh at you because you can't do battle res for 3 minutes after it happens. Alright, Legacy of the Void, it's the best time to activate your Void form with this talent is actually at 85 Insanity. You're not going to overcap as soon as you go into Void form, because you'll most likely have Mind Blast up, or, you know, any number of things. It's very good for leveling, it's very good for dungeons, especially compared to the Void Lord. You know, you're just constantly going to be in and out of Void form. Now, Lingering Insanity, which is a new passive that we get here, right? From Void form, pretty much you get all the haste that you got from Void form, and you keep it outside of Void form until your next Void form. Now, Void Lord is good because it lets you keep that haste for an additional 8 seconds while you're into your next Void form, so the transition from non-Void form to Void form doesn't feel so jarring when you get used to that level of haste. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to you what talents you decide to do. These are just my best recommendations. Alright? Next, we're going to talk about our priority list. Now, as you can see on the screen, the priority list is actually quite large, but it's really not that complicated. Your primary goal is to build up to, either 85 or 100 insanity, depending on which level 100 talent that you're taking down here. Also, pretty much your dots are going to maintain themselves after you cast them. Alright, so what you're going to do here is I always open, pre-pot, and then I open with Mind Blast into here, and then I put on my dots, and then I just flay until, I build up to my insanity. Alright, now this is going to take a little while because I don't have a lot of haste, so don't worry about it. And then once I get in there, now keep in mind you're probably going to have to refresh your dots. That's fine. That's completely normal. Alright. Alright, now that we're going to enter Void form. Alright, so we're going to have to refresh Shadow Ravine. Boom. And now we're going to use our artifact ability. Now, Void Torrent is a 4-second channel. And boom. Void Bolt here. And yeah. Alright, so we're doing some decent damage. Now, keep in mind, this is just a single target rotation. Now, the only difference between the single target rotation and the multi-target rotation is just going to be maintaining your dots and then casting Void Bolt on your other two targets. So it's really not that big of a difference at the end of the day. I can just throw these in there willy-nilly. It's not going to affect me too much. I'm probably going to have to reapply dots to some of these. It's okay. Put Shadow Crash out there. Refresh this. Alright. And this little handy-dandy add-on over here is called Enemy Grid. Now, I'll get into the specifics about add-ons later on, but this grid literally makes maintaining dots like this super easy. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is that the dot refresh of Void Bolt does not actually take effect until the Void Bolt impacts the target. So, unfortunately, there's only so much that you can do about that, and there's like if your max range 40 yards, it's going to kind of suck, and you may have to end up applying dots like I did a couple times, especially if your haste is lower. At the end of the day, it's okay. It's not going to affect your DPS a whole lot, but try and be closer if you know that you're going to have 3 targets up for a long time. One thing that's very important, though, is when you are at 4 to 6 targets that are going to be alive for 10 plus seconds, or 4 targets alive for 10 or under 10 seconds, you could use Shadow Word Pain. It's your best judgment if you think they're going to live a while, and you're going to want to use Shadow Word Death, and you're also going to want to just fill with Mindseer. Now, Mindseer does give you insanity, plus if you have the legendary, what's the name of it? The Twins Painful Touch, as you can see on the screen. That's definitely going to be something that you're going to use in your rotation, and it will make your AoE rotation faster. Now, if you have Shadow Crash Talented, obviously you're going to want to use that if you know it's going to hit an impact before the mobs die. Otherwise, you just wasted your 30-second cooldown of an excuse of an AoE. Thank you, Blizzard. Lastly, we're going to talk about your artifacts. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to start with Void Torrent. As you can see, that's the first gold trait. Then we're going to move into Void Siphon, into Unleash the Shadows, to the Pain, Thrive in the Shadows, From the Shadows, Mind Shattering, and finally our first gold trait, Mass Hysteria. Now, just a quick little excerpt about Mass Hysteria. Of our 3 gold traits, it's actually the best DPS-wise. Call of the Void gives us a little Void Tendril that we can basically use as a tank, so it's good for leveling and soloing stuff, but for raids, you're going to want to definitely go for Mass Hysteria. And then our other gold trait is Fear of Insanity. It is the absolute worst DPS trait that we could possibly go for. And as a matter of fact, most of our lesser traits are actually better than it. So, after you get Mass Hysteria, you're going to pick up Thoughts of Insanity, Touch of Darkness, and Call of the Void. Lastly, and you can do these last 4 in any order that you'd like, Creeping Shadows, Sphere of Insanity, Void Corruption, and then Mental Fortitude. Now, ideally, before raid, you could actually pick up your first 2 gold traits of Mass Hysteria and Call of the Void if you put in the decent amount of farming time for it. Unfortunately, if you don't have the time, then definitely go for Mass Hysteria first. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and like the video, and follow me on Twitter and check me out on Twitch whenever I go live. I'm going to be streaming the entire leveling process, And check out the guide on Wowhead. Link is in the description below to keep up to date with all the stuff. I'm going to update a lot more often there than I would on a video. So again, thanks.